Welcome back to Age of the Classics. My name is Bert and thank you for joining us today. We are going to be looking at Chapter 4 of Meet Madeline under the title Ben's Promise, where last we left off at the end of Chapter 3. Madeline's mother had asked her to stop thinking about Penny and that she couldn't go visiting Penny, but Madeline couldn't stop thinking about Penny. So let's see what she does in Chapter 4. The last sliver of moonlight made a silvery path across the floor of Madeline's room. As soundless in a dream, Madeline edged out of bed. She slipped her petticoats over her shift, pulled on her stockings and garters, and tiptoed to the door. Down the steps she crept, skipping the step that creaked. She was shaking with nervousness. It was better when she was outside. Madeline put on her shoes and then gathered her petticoats in her hand and ran as fast as she could through the garden, through the dark streets, and past the sleeping houses. On she ran to the edge of town, where the trees grew close to the road, and she was just another ghostly shadow. By the time Madeline reached the pasture, she was out of breath. She stood on the lowest rung of the fence and searched the darkness for Penny. The horse was tied to a stake by a thick rope. Penny looked up and tossed her head. Madeline did not dare speak aloud. "I'm here. It's me," she whispered to Penny. "You don't have to trust me yet, but you will. I know you will." Penny did not move. Madeline left a small apple near the stake. "Goodbye," she whispered. Then she ran home. The sky was only just beginning to grow light around the edges. When Madeline came to breakfast, her mother looked at her. "Madeline," she said, "your petticoats are wet and muddy. Most likely your stockings are wet too, all the way up to your garters. What on earth have you been doing?" Madeline looked down at her muddy hem. I was just, in the garden." Mrs. Madeline smiled. "Digging around the pumpkins you planted? My impatient one, they'll not grow faster just to please you. Now sit down and eat your breakfast." "I need breeches," thought Madeline. "Then I can run freely. Then it won't matter if I get wet and muddy. But how can I get them?" She found the answer in the mending pile. It was a pair of Ben's breeches made of thin black cotton. Madeline knew Ben didn't wear these breeches often, just to church sometimes. He wouldn't miss them if she borrowed them for a while. The next morning, before dawn, Madeline sneaked out of the house again. This time, she stopped by the stable. She had hidden Ben's breeches there under an old bucket. She put the breeches on over her shift and tied them around her waist with a rope. Ben was skinny but tall, so the breeches went down to Madeline's ankles. As she ran through the silent streets toward the tannery, her legs felt so free. For once she could run as fast as she wanted to, without petticoats to hold her back. Morning after morning, before anyone was awake, Madeline stepped out of the house to visit Penny. At first, Madeline stayed outside the pasture. After a few days, she sat on the top rail of the fence. She sat near, but not too near, the stake to which Penny was tied. Madeline never spoke aloud. She knew that if she were rough or noisy, she would frighten the horse. Even though Madeline couldn't sit still for her stitchery, she could sit still, almost without moving, when she was near Penny. She felt peaceful, sitting on the rail fence with those misty grey mornings, watching the beautiful horse. Sometimes Penny was gone. Sometimes she pulled on her rope or raised her head to sniff the wind. "She's thinking about running away," thought Madeline. "She's thinking about freedom." The first time Madeline climbed off the fence into the pasture, Penny tossed her head and danced about. But she did not whinny or shy away. Soon, Madeline thought Penny expected her to come each morning, and maybe even looked forward to seeing her. Penny knew Madeline was kind and patient and would not hurt her. With all her heart, Madeline wished she had more time to spend with Penny so that the horse would trust her completely. One morning after breakfast, Madeline was trying to hide her yarns as she practiced her stitches. She sat up straight when she heard her mother ask, "Ben, did you put your breeches in the mending pile as I told you to?" "Yes, ma'am," answered Ben. "I didn't see them there," said Mrs. Madeline. "Where are they?" "I do not know, ma'am," said Ben. Well, look about you, lad. Breeches just don't disappear." "Yes, ma'am," said Ben. Madeline kept her head down, but watched Ben out of the corner of her eye. He looked confused and a little embarrassed. "He has no idea what has happened to his breeches," thought Madeline. "I wonder how he would feel if he did know." But no one knew Madeline's secret. No one knew about the lovely time she had with Penny all those dreamlike mornings. Madeline's secret made her happy. All day long, while she was mending or practicing her writing or playing with Nan or William, Madeline thought about Penny. The beautiful horse was growing more friendly every day. Madeline always took an apple to Penny. One morning, after Madeline had visited her for a few weeks, Penny took the apple right out from Madeline's hand. Madeline caught her breath when she felt Penny's warm nose tickling her fingers. She stood very still. She did not try to touch Penny, but from that time on, Penny made a game of asking for the apple. She would nudge Madeline gently and nick her until Madeline held the apple out to her. On one drizzly morning, Penny nuzzled Madeline for the apple as usual. But before she took it, Penny raised her head, whinnied, and seemed worried. Madeline stepped back. "What's wrong, Penny?" she whispered. Just then, Madeline heard dogs barking and yelling. "Mr. Nye!" He was coming out to pasture. Madeline dropped to the ground and rolled under the fence and hid in the tall, scraggly grass. Penny whinnied and pawed the ground. "Jerky starts with me, you useless horse!" Mr. Nye snarled. He came into the pasture and stood by the fence, near Madeline's hiding spot. Madeline dared not move. Her heart thumped as she watched Mr. Nye put a bucket of water on the ground in front of Penny. "No, till you let me ride these, I say," he muttered to the horse. "Starve to death for all I care." As soon as Mr. Nye turned his back, Madeline got up and ran at home as fast as she could. But nothing, not even Mr. Nye, could keep Madeline away from Penny. The mornings grew more chill as September blew into October. Madeline shivered when she pulled herself out of bed these mornings, but the sky stayed dark longer, so she had more time with Penny. There was frost on the grass the morning Madeline untied Penny's rope from the stake and led her around the pasture for the first time. Penny followed behind Madeline, leaving the whole length of rope between them. But after a week or so, Penny followed her nose right next to Madeline's shoulder. Sometimes Penny even pushed at her playfully. At the end of their walks, Penny let Madeline stroke her neck and rub her nose. "Why, that's my girl," Madeline whispered in her ear. "You know I love you, don't you, Penny? Don't you, girl? You know I won't rush you." The day came and Madeline's patience was rewarded. One morning, Penny was standing quietly next to the fence as if she were waiting for Madeline. Slowly, Madeline untied the rope from the stake. Slowly, she climbed on to Penny's back. At first, Penny trotted. Madeline sat up straight and held on to her mane. As Penny's stiff trot eased into a smooth canter, Madeline leaned closer and closer to Penny's neck. Soon, they were flying across the pasture, moving as swift and sure as the wind. Penny's hooves hardly seemed to touch the ground. Above them, the sky was pearly grey. The wind made Madeline's eyes water. She had moved as that fast only in her dreams. Every day, Penny did something new. The first time Penny jumped over a small pile of hay, Madeline was so surprised she fell off the horse's back. After that, they tried higher and higher jumps. A heap of a rock, a tree stump, a stack of logs. Madeline never fell off again. She learned that Penny tends to nap just before she jumped. That was a signal to Madeline to hold on tight. Penny was full of surprises. One morning she carried Madeline across the pasture in a gallop, then leaped effortlessly over the broken down part of the fence. That morning they rode farther than ever before. Madeline lost track of time as they cantered deeper into the woods with no fences to stop them. When they jumped back over the fence, back into the pasture, Madeline retied Penny's rope to the stake quickly. She knew it was late. The sky was turning pink and the mist was lifting out of the shadows. Madeline ran home. She slipped into the stable as usual and changed from the breeches to a petticoat quickly. She was just rolling up the breeches to hide them under the bucket when she heard someone say, "You!" It was Ben. Madeline froze with the breeches in her hand. She said nothing. "What do you have here?" asked Ben in the coldest voice. He came forward. "What? You have my best Sunday breeches." He took them out of Felicity's hands and looked at them. "They're wet and covered in mud." He sniffed them. "Whew! They smell like horse." He looked at Madeline. "Madeline, are you—" Madeline interrupted him. "I'm sorry, Ben. I was borrowing them. I just needed them." Ben sat down. "Madeline, tell me what you're doing," he said quietly. Madeline took a deep breath. "Visiting Penny, the horse at the tannery." "That horse," said Ben. His eyes were wide. "Oh, she's fine, Ben," said Madeline. "She's gentle and dear, and she's so fast." "What?" Ben exclaimed. "You mean you're riding her?" "Oh, yes," said Madeline. "It's a wonder, Ben. It's just like riding the wind." Ben shook his head. "Madeline, I don't know whether you're the bravest or most foolish girl I've ever known," he said. "I'd be afraid to ride that horse. She looks like she'd throw any rider sky high." "Oh, she was afraid at first, but now she trusts me," said Madeline. "How long have you been going out there?" Ben asked. "Every day since the rain stopped," Madeline answered. "That's almost a month. You've been up before dawn, dressing in my breeches and running out to see that horse for 1 month?" "Yes." Ben sat still. He stared at Madeline and said nothing. Then he asked, "How long can you keep doing this? You can't do it forever. Mr. Nye will surely see you someday, and Penny is his horse." "I heard Mr. Nye say that anyone who could ride her could have her," said Madeline. "I can ride her, so she'll be mine." Ben sighed. "Madeline, you set your heart on things too much. I don't believe Mr. Nye or your father will let you keep that horse." He saw Madeline's stubborn frown and he grinned. "But then, I never would have believed you could have ridden that horse either. I'm going to get Penny away from Mr. Nye somehow. I have to," Felicity said. "Aye," said Ben. "You'd best do it soon." "I can't hurry Penny. I have to be patient with her." Ben nodded. "So, do you want your breeches back?" "Not smelling the way they do now," laughed Ben. "No, you need them more than I do. You keep them as long as you like. I'll keep your secret." "Thank you, Ben," said Madeline. She gave a quick grin and hurried into breakfast. Sharing Madeline's secret seemed to change Ben. He wasn't so shy. Sometimes he whistled, and he even surprised everyone by joking once or twice at supper. And he was true to his word. That Sunday, Mrs. Merriman said, "Ben, you still have not found your good breeches. They were expensive and fine from Indian cotton. 'Tis not like you to be so careless." "I beg your pardon, ma'am," said Bean. I know where they are now. Madeline felt her hand, her face going red. Was Bean going to tell? I lent them to a friend, said Bean easily. Indeed! May I ask why? Said Mrs. Merriman. My friend needs them more than I do, said Bean. Well, sighed Mrs. Merriman, dust off your old woolen breeches then. We need to go to church like looking like a band of ruffians. Madeline smiled at Bean. He had called her his friend. He truly was her friend to her. All that week, Madeline thought long and hard about what Bean had said. She knew he was right. She couldn't keep her secret much longer. Thank you for joining us for Chapter 4 of Meet Madeline. Join us next week for the stunning conclusion in Chapter 5, Independence. As always, thank you for joining us on Age of the Classics. We'll see you next time.